Everyone talks about meditation like it's some kind of superpower. Lower cortisol, better focus, emotional regulation and rewire your brain. Become the calm person in the room who never gets rattled by anything. I'd heard all of it and I was skeptical of all of it, so I decided to test it properly. 7 months every single day, no days off, and tracked consistently, starting from someone who had never meditated seriously and generally don't know what to expect. What happened over those 7 months was not what the wellness industry promised. Some of it was better, some of it was harder. And the most important thing had nothing to do with the benefits I was looking for. I want to be honest about why I started this. It wasn't curiosity, it wasn't wellness goal. It was an ability to stay still. I mentioned this in my another video. I can only truly rest with alcohol or sleep. Everything else feels like a wasted time. The silence feels like falling behind. The restlessness which I'd lived with so long, I'd stopped noticing it, was starting to cost me. In the quality of my thinking, in the quality of my creative work. In a relationship where my attention kept drifting to whatever I hadn't built yet. Meditation felt like most direct confrontation with the thing I was avoiding, not relaxation, confrontation. Sitting with myself with no input, no productivity, no hide behind, and seeing what was actually there. That was the experiment. Month 1, the noise. The first thing I noticed how loud it was inside my head. Not sound, thought, the constant relentless, the constant stream of thinking and planning, worrying, creating or solving. I'd always known that this stream existed. What I hadn't understood is how was loud it, until I tried to sit quietly with it for 20 minutes. The first 2 weeks felt like a failure. My mind wouldn't stop. I couldn't focus, I kept opening my eyes to check the timer. What the book says, that's normal. What I felt, I'm doing this wrong. By the week 3, something shifted, not the stream stopping. The relationship to it changes. I started to notice the thought arriving before I was already made it. The gap, tiny, barely there, was new. Month 2 and 3, the gap widens. By month 2, the practice becomes a routine. 15 minutes every morning before anything else. And the gap I noticed in a week 3 started to appear in a waking life too. In a conversation where someone said something that would usually trigger an automatic reaction. I noticed the reaction forming before it had fully formed. That half second of awareness, that tiny space between stimulus and response was the most significant change of those 3 months. Not calm exactly, the awareness of not being calm, which turns to be more useful. Month 4, the difficult middle. This is where nobody warns you. The honeymoon of a new practice is over. The dramatic beginner inside have settled, and what you are left with is just sitting every morning with yourself, with everything you haven't processed, with the things you've been busy to feel. Month 4 brought a material I hadn't fully expected. Grief I'd been carrying without labeling, anger about things I declared to resolve, the specific loneliness of a person who moves fast enough to stay ahead of themselves until they sit down and stop moving. Not peace, clarity, not calm, perspective, the ability to watch a thought and not to be it, to feel the emotion and not perform it, to sit with discomfort long enough to understand what it's actually telling me rather than moving immediately to manage it. 7 months in, here's the honest breakdown. What's genuinely real? The gap between stimulus and response, completely real. This is the most practically useful change and it compounds over time. The half second of awareness before a reaction becomes a behavior. This is where the conscious choice lives. The quality of creative thinking improved. The ideas that comes in meditation, the ones that arrives in a genuine stillness are consistently more interesting than ideas that arrives in active thinking. Something about stopping the noise creates a space for a signal. The relationship with discomfort when you mentally changed. Sitting with something uncomfortable for 20 minutes every morning without moving to fix it or escape it changed my tolerance for discomfort everywhere. What's overhyped? The emotional regulation miracle, not what they promised. I still get triggered, I still react. I'm just sometimes aware of the reaction a fraction of a second before I incite it. That's valuable, but that's not the superhuman equanimity the meditation industry sells. The anxiety cure? No, my restlessness wasn't resolved by meditation. It was illuminated, which is different. I understand it better, I had to face it directly. But the drive, the noise, the inability to rest, still present and just more visible. What surprised me the most, the material that surfaced in a difficult middle, the grief, the anger, the things that came up when I stopped moving fast enough to outrun them. That was the most important result of that experiment, not the benefits I was looking for, the inventory I didn't know I needed. If you want to try this, here's what actually helps. Start shorter than you think. Everyone says start with 5 minutes. I say start with 2. 2 minutes of genuine stillness is harder than you think. Build a tolerance before you build the duration. Expect the noise and don't fight it. The goal of meditation is not an empty mind. It never was. The goal is to notice the thought, let it pass and return to the breath. That noticing and returning, done thousands of times, is the practice, not the silence. Sit with what comes up.
Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel.
When something uncomfortable surfaces, an emotion, a memory, a feeling you've been outrunning, try not to manage it immediately. Sit with it for one more breath and another. That practice, staying with discomfort long enough to understand it, is the most transferable skill meditation actually builds. I still meditate, not every day anymore. I want to be honest about that. 5 or 6 times a week. The daily streak ended at around 5 months and I stopped trying to rebuild it.
Hi, what's up? Haha.
Because practice mattered more than the streak. What 7 months of sitting with myself taught me was not what I expected to learn. I expected relaxation, I found confrontation. I expected calm, I found clarity what was disturbing calm. I expected the noise to stop, I found that the noise is information. And that the practice isn't about silencing, but about hearing it differently. If you've been avoiding meditation because it sounds boring, you are not wrong. It's boring. It's also one of the most honest things you can do with 20 minutes of your morning. Sit down, stop moving, see what's actually there. Tell me in comments, have you ever tried meditation? Press like and subscribe. Let's rise together and have a good fight fun. You know I'm big stepping, walking through the door. So when I'm getting